Alan Hughes parked his car outside the small motel that sat alone on the desert highway. The neon sign flickered weakly against the darkening sky. He had been staying here for 3 weeks now, driving each day to the Patel Radio Observatory about 5 miles down the road. The case was unlike anything he had worked on before. Alan grabbed his worn leather bag from the passenger seat and locked the car. He nodded to the motel owner who sat behind the front desk, watching an old Western movie. The owner barely looked up as Alan walked past. After 3 weeks, they had settled into a quiet routine of minimal interaction. Room 12 was small but clean. Alan tossed his bag onto the bed and went to the bathroom to splash water on his face. The mirror showed a tired man with graying hair at his temples and lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. At 45, Alan was starting to feel the weight of his 20 years as a private investigator. He sat at the small desk by the window and opened his laptop. The screen glowed in the dimness of the room as he pulled up the files Elliot Patel had sent him. Patel was a billionaire who had made his fortune in telecommunications before turning his attention to space. The observatory that bore his name was supposed to search for signals from distant stars. Instead, it had found something much stranger. These patterns repeat too precisely to be natural, Patel had told Alan during their first meeting in his gleaming office in San Francisco. But they don't match any known human transmission patterns either. Alan wasn't sure why Patel had hired a private investigator instead of more scientists, but the money was good, and the mystery was compelling. Now, after 3 weeks of interviews, research, and long nights studying the signal data, Alan was beginning to understand why Patel had wanted someone with investigative skills. Someone at the observatory was hiding something. Alan sorted through his notes. Dr. Linda Powell, the head scientist, was polite but clearly annoyed by his presence. She answered his questions with minimal information and often seemed to be watching him when she thought he wasn't looking. Gary West, the night shift technician, was more helpful but nervous, jumping at small noises and checking his phone constantly. And then there was Megan Riley, the data analyst who had first noticed the strange patterns in the signals. She had been eager to talk when Alan first arrived, showing him her findings and theories. But for the past week, she had been absent, with Dr. Powell claiming she was out sick. Alan opened the audio files he had collected. The signals, when converted to sound, created an eerie, rhythmic pattern that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He had played them for his wife Diane during their nightly call 3 days ago. "It sounds like breathing," she had said. "Like something huge breathing in space." He missed Diane and their son Nathan. Video calls weren't the same as being there, watching Nathan play basketball or helping with his science homework. But this case paid well enough that Nathan's college fund would get a nice boost. Alan's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Check the storage room behind Building C midnight." He stared at the message. Building C was one of the smaller structures at the observatory, used mainly for equipment storage according to the maps he had been given. Who would want to meet him there, and why? It could be a trap. But it could also be the break he needed. After 3 weeks, he was no closer to understanding the true source of the signals or why Patel seemed so worried about them. Alan checked his watch, 10:30 p.m. He had time to prepare. He pulled his pistol from his bag and checked it, then tucked it into his shoulder holster. He wasn't expecting trouble, but 20 years as an investigator had taught him to be ready for it. The drive to the observatory was quiet. The desert stretched out on either side of the road, silver in the moonlight. The observatory itself sat on a small rise, its white domes and angular buildings standing out against the night sky. The main telescope dome was open, its massive eye turned to the stars. Alan parked in his usual spot and used his visitor badge to enter through a side door. The night guard, Bill, nodded to him from his desk. "Working late again, Mr. Hughes?" Alan smiled. "Just need to check a few things. Don't mind me." He walked through the quiet halls, passing darkened offices and labs. A few night shift workers were around, but they paid little attention to him now. After 3 weeks, he had become part of the background. Building C was at the back of the complex. Alan approached carefully, staying in the shadows and watching for any signs of movement. The area seemed deserted. He checked his watch again. 11:55 p.m. Almost time. The storage room door was locked, but Alan had come prepared. The lock was simple, and he had it open in under a minute. The room beyond was dark. He pulled out his flashlight and stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Shelves lined the walls, filled with boxes and equipment. Nothing seemed out of place. Alan moved deeper into the room, the beam of his flashlight sweeping across dusty floors and abandoned technology. And then he saw it. A door at the back of the room, hidden behind a tall shelf. It looked newer than everything else, with a keypad lock beside it. The sound of the main door opening made Alan turn. He switched off his flashlight and slipped behind a shelf, his hand moving to his gun. Footsteps approached slowly. A beam of light swept the room. "Mr. Hughes, are you here?" "It's Megan Riley." Alan hesitated, then stepped out. "Ms. Riley, I thought you were sick." The young woman looked pale and tired, her normally neat hair hanging loose around her face. "That's what they told everyone. I've been hiding. They found out what I discovered, and they tried to." She swallowed hard. "They tried to stop me from telling anyone." "Who did? Dr. Powell?" Megan shook her head. "It goes higher, much higher. The signals aren't coming from space, Mr. Hughes. They're being sent to space from here, and they're getting responses." Alan stared at her. "You're saying someone at the observatory is communicating with, what, aliens?" "Not aliens." Megan moved to the hidden door and punched in a code. The door slid open silently. "Something much closer to home, but much stranger too. I need to show you." Beyond the door was a narrow staircase leading down. Megan started down, looking back at Alan. "Coming? This is what you were hired to find, even if Mr. Patel doesn't know it himself." Alan followed her down the stairs, his mind racing. At the bottom was another door, which opened into a large room filled with humming equipment. Screens showed star maps and signal patterns, and in the center of the room was a device unlike anything Alan had ever seen. "What is this place?" he asked. "The real observatory," Megan said. "The one that's been operating since the 1940s, long before Patel built his cover operation above it." Alan moved toward the central device, a series of concentric rings surrounding a platform. It looked like something from a science fiction movie. "The signals are a key," Megan explained, moving to a control panel. "A key to something that will change everything we know about our place in the universe." The rings began to spin, and the air in the chamber became charged with electricity. Alan felt his skin tingle. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice nearly drowned out by the rising hum of the machine. Megan looked at him, her eyes reflecting the blue light from the device. "Showing you the truth. They've been waiting for someone like you, someone who can understand." A blinding light filled the room, and Alan Hughes vanished from the world he knew. 10 years passed since the night Alan Hughes vanished from the Patel Radio Observatory. The world moved on. The search for the missing investigator eventually stopped. His case file gathered dust in a police station storage room, marked as unsolved. Nathan Hughes woke up on the 10th anniversary of his father's disappearance with a heaviness in his chest. He was 26 now, no longer the confused and angry 16-year-old boy who had waited by the phone for news that never came. Lived alone in a small apartment in the city, working as a data analyst for a cybersecurity company called Shield Tech. He got out of bed and made coffee, trying to push away the memories. 10 years, a decade without answers. His mother had eventually remarried and moved to another state. She had urged Nathan to see a therapist, to process his grief, to accept that his father was gone. Nathan had done all that, but he had never stopped wondering. The knock on his door came at exactly 9:17 a.m. Nathan opened it to find a delivery person holding a small package. "Nathan Hughes?" the delivery person asked. "That's me." "Sign here, please." Nathan signed for the package and closed the door. The return address made his heart skip a beat. It was his childhood home, the house his mother had sold 5 years ago after remarrying. But the handwriting wasn't his mother's. It was his father's. With shaking hands, Nathan opened the package. Inside was a letter in a sealed envelope and a small flash drive labeled with a single word: Gateway. The letter was dated the day before his father disappeared. Nathan sat down heavily on his couch, his coffee forgotten on the counter. To be delivered to my son Nathan on the 10th anniversary of my disappearance, should that come to pass, the letter began. Nathan read through the letter 3 times, trying to make sense of it. Most of it seemed like nonsense, filled with references to astronomical coordinates, quotes from scientific papers he had never heard of, and memories from his childhood that only he and his father would know. Remember the night we camped in the backyard? One part read, and I showed you Polaris? I told you it was the only star that never moves from its place. I was wrong. Everything moves, Nathan. Everything changes. The key is knowing how to track the movement. The letter ended with, if you're reading this, I didn't make it back. But the path remains open and you carry the key. They are waiting, Nathan. They've always been waiting. Nathan plugged the flash drive into his laptop. It contained hundreds of files. His father's research notes, audio recordings, photographs, and video clips. Nathan clicked on a video file dated 3 days before his father's disappearance. His father's face filled the screen. He looked tired but excited, his eyes bright with discovery. The signals form a pattern, Alan Hughes said in the recording. Not just a message, but a map. They've been broadcasting for decades, maybe longer. Patel thinks he discovered them, but someone else found them first, long before his observatory was built. Nathan spent the entire day going through the files, forgetting to eat or drink. The world outside his apartment faded away as he dove deeper into his father's work. The signals his father had been investigating weren't random. They were a code, a complex mathematical sequence that repeated with small variations. His phone rang at 7:30 p.m., startling him. It was his boss. Nathan, where are you? You missed the security meeting. Are you sick? Nathan glanced at the time, shocked to realize he had missed work entirely. I'm sorry, Frank. It's a family emergency. I need to take a few days off. There was a pause on the other end. Is this about your father? Your mom called the office looking for you. She seemed worried. Tell her I'm fine. I just need some time. After hanging up, Nathan went back to the files. One folder contained information about the Patel Radio Observatory. According to his father's notes, the main facility was built on top of an older structure, one that had been operating since at least the 1940s. Nathan searched online for recent information about the observatory. It was still operational, though Elliot Patel had died 3 years ago. His daughter, Olivia Patel, now ran the foundation that funded the observatory's work. Among his father's contacts listed in the files was a name that appeared multiple times, Carol Baker. According to the notes, she had been a junior researcher at the observatory when his father was there. A quick search showed she now worked at a university astronomy department about 2 hours away. Nathan made a decision. He copied the most important files to his personal drive, packed a bag with a few clothes, and grabbed his car keys. Before leaving, he looked again at the final page of his father's letter. There was a sequence of numbers at the bottom that he hadn't noticed before, written in tiny script. 42.9372 Digger N, 116.8745 Dig. We entered the coordinates into his phone. They pointed to a location in the Nevada desert, not far from the Patel Observatory. Nathan grabbed his jacket and headed out. The drive to the university took 2 hours. It was nearly 10 p.m. when Nathan arrived, but lights were still on in the astronomy building. He found Carol Baker's office on the 3rd floor, the door slightly ajar with light spilling into the hallway. Nathan knocked softly. Dr. Baker? A woman in her 50s looked up from her computer. She had short gray hair and sharp eyes behind round glasses. Yes? Can I help you? My name is Nathan Hughes. Alan Hughes was my father. The color drained from Carol's face. She stood up quickly, moved to the door, and looked down the hallway in both directions before pulling Nathan inside and closing the door. You shouldn't be here, she said in a low voice. How did you find me? My father's research notes. He left them for me to find. Carol stared at him. Left them? How? Nathan explained about the package, the letter, and the flash drive. With each word, Carol's expression grew more troubled. "Show me," she said finally. Nathan pulled out his laptop and showed her some of the files. Carol's hands trembled as she looked through them. "He figured it out," she whispered. "He actually figured it out." "Figured what out? What happened to my father?" Carol looked at Nathan, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and wonder. "Your father discovered something that would change everything we know about humanity's place in the universe. And if you have these files, then they know about you too. You're in danger." "Who are they?" "The same people who took your father." Carol began gathering her things. "We need to go, now. I can explain more on the way, but we can't stay here. They monitor communications and they'll know you came to see me." "Go where?" Carol pointed to the map on Nathan's phone, still open to the coordinates from his father's letter. "There. That's where the answers are. That's where your father went." Nathan followed Carol out of the building, his mind racing. After 10 years of questions, he was finally getting answers. But they weren't the answers he had expected. Whatever had happened to his father, it was bigger and stranger than he had ever imagined. As they drove away from the university, Nathan looked at the flash drive in his hand. "Gateway," it said. A gateway to what? He was about to find out. The desert highway stretched before them, empty and dark. Nathan drove while Carol studied the files on his laptop. They had been driving for 3 hours, stopping only once for gas and coffee. It was past midnight now. "Your father was brilliant," Carol said, looking up from the screen. "He saw connections that none of us did." "Tell me what you know," Nathan said. "What was he really investigating at the observatory?" Carol sighed. "Officially, we were searching for signs of intelligent life in space. But some of us noticed something strange about the signals we were collecting. They weren't random. There was a pattern, a structure to them that seemed almost like a language." She paused, looking out at the dark desert. "Your father was hired by Elliot Patel to find out if someone at the observatory was sending fake signals. Patel thought one of us was creating a hoax, but your father discovered something much bigger. The signals weren't coming from space," Nathan said, remembering his father's notes. Carol nodded. "Not originally, no. They were being sent from Earth, from somewhere very close to the observatory. And they were getting responses." Nathan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Responses from where?" "That's the question, isn't it? Not from aliens, as most people would assume. From humans. But not like any humans we know." Nathan glanced at her. "What does that mean?" "Your father believed the signals were coming from our future, or a future at least. A version of humanity so advanced they might as well be another species." Nathan tried to process this. It sounded impossible, like something from a science fiction movie. But his father had been the most logical, rational person he knew. If he had believed it, there must have been evidence. "In his last video," Nathan said, "he mentioned a map. That the signals formed a map." "Yes," Carol replied. "Not a map of space, but of time. Your father believed these future humans had found a way to send messages back through time, creating what he called temporal spatial fault lines, places where the barrier between different points in time was thinner. The coordinates led them deeper into the Nevada desert, away from main roads and into territory marked only by dirt tracks." Nathan's car struggled over the rough terrain. Dawn was beginning to lighten the sky when they finally reached a chain link fence with faded warning signs. "Restricted area. No trespassing. Government property." "This is it?" Nathan asked, stopping the car. Carol checked the GPS. "The coordinates are about half a mile beyond this fence. There used to be a mining operation here in the 1930s, but it was shut down during World War II. Officially, it was because the mine was depleted. Unofficially, she didn't need to finish." Nathan understood. Whatever was beyond this fence, it wasn't just an abandoned mine. They found a section of fence that had been cut and repaired many times. It gave way easily when they pulled at it. They continued on foot, climbing over rocky terrain as the sun rose. The landscape was barren, with only sparse desert plants clinging to life among the rocks. There, Carol said, pointing to a low concrete structure half hidden behind a ridge. As they got closer, Nathan could see it was the entrance to what might have been a mine. Heavy metal doors stood partially open as if someone had left in a hurry and failed to secure them. "Should we go in?" Nathan asked, suddenly uncertain. Carol pulled a flashlight from her bag. "Your father wanted you to come here. He left those coordinates for a reason." The entrance led to a tunnel that sloped downward. The walls were lined with old electrical conduits and pipes. Some lights still worked, casting a dim glow that barely cut through the darkness. They walked for about 10 minutes before the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Nathan shined his phone's light around. The space was filled with rusted mining equipment, old tools, and empty crates. It looked like any abandoned mine left to decay for decades. "This can't be right," he said, disappointed. "There's nothing here." "Wait." Carol moved to the back wall of the chamber. "Look at this." Nathan joined her. The back wall didn't match the rest of the cave. It was smoother, made of poured concrete rather than natural rock, and there was a seam running down the center like a door. "How do we open it?" Nathan asked, running his hands over the surface. Carol examined the wall carefully. There must be a mechanism, a switch or a lever. Nathan remembered something from his father's letter. "The key," he murmured. "He said I carried the key." He pulled out the letter again and read it carefully. "Remember, when I taught you to find Polaris, I told you it was the only star that never moves from its place." Nathan looked up at the ceiling of the chamber. There were marks there, scratched into the rock. Stars. A constellation map. "Give me a boost," he said to Carol. She helped him climb up onto a large piece of mining equipment. From there, he could reach the ceiling. He traced the star pattern with his fingers until he found it. Polaris, the North Star. Unlike the other marks, this one had depth. It was a small hole carved into the rock. Nathan pressed his finger into the hole. There was a click, and then a low rumbling sound. The concrete wall began to slide open. Beyond it was a hallway that looked nothing like the abandoned mine. The walls were smooth metal, with soft lighting that came on automatically as the door opened. The air that flowed out was cool and clean. "This isn't from the 1940s, Carol whispered. "This is modern, or beyond modern." They stepped through the doorway cautiously. The hallway led to another door, this one with a keypad beside it. "Now what?" Nathan asked. Carol examined the keypad. "We need a code." Nathan thought about his father's letter again. He had mentioned a camping trip when Nathan was 7, when they had watched the stars together. His father had told him that his birthday was special because the numbers formed a pattern. Nathan's birthday was April 23, 2008, 4 to 23:08. He entered the numbers into the keypad, 42308. Nothing happened. "Wait," Carol said. "Try a different format. Scientists often write dates, year, month, day." Nathan tried again. 2008, 423. The door slid open. Beyond it was a large room filled with equipment that made the observatory's technology look primitive by comparison. Screens displayed data in formats Nathan didn't recognize. In the center of the room was the device his father had been standing next to in the last video. A series of concentric rings surrounding a platform. "This is it," Carol breathed. "This is what your father found." Nathan moved to one of the computer stations. It was still active, processing data. On the screen was a star map, with certain stars highlighted and connected by lines. But there was something odd about it. "These aren't the right positions," Carol said, looking over his shoulder. "The stars are where they would be thousands of years from now, accounting for stellar movement." Nathan found a folder labeled with his father's name. Inside was a video file dated the day of his disappearance. With shaking hands, he clicked on it. His father's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but excited. "Nathan, if you're watching this, then you found your way here." "Good. There isn't much time, so listen carefully. What we thought were signals from space are actually markers, waypoints in a network that spans not just distance, but time itself. They've been reaching back, sending information to key points in history to guide human development. They need our help now. Their world is dying and they need to change the path that led them there. Alan Hughes looked over his shoulder as if hearing something. I've been asked to help them understand our time better, to be a bridge. They're offering me a chance to see things no human from our time has ever seen. I have to go, but I'll come back when I can. When the temporal currents align. Wait for me at the gateway. I love you, son. The video ended as a bright light began to fill the frame, the same light Nathan had seen in the last moments of the other video. He went willingly, Nathan said quietly. He wasn't taken. He chose to go. Carol was examining the central device. This platform, it's still active, still drawing power. I think this is the gateway he mentioned. Nathan joined her, staring at the concentric rings. How does it work? How do we use it? Carol pointed to a control panel. I think this is where we start. Carol moved carefully around the control panel, studying the symbols and screens. This technology is beyond anything I've ever seen. The design principles aren't even recognizable. Nathan walked around the platform with its concentric rings. The metal was smooth and cool to the touch, with faint lines etched into the surface that glowed with a soft blue light. The center platform was about 8 feet across, large enough for a person to stand comfortably. Do you think this is how my father left? Nathan asked. Some kind of transportation device? Based on what he said in the video, yes. Carol tapped at one of the screens, which responded to her touch by displaying a new set of symbols. He mentioned temporal currents. I think this might be a time travel device or something similar. Nathan found another computer station and began searching through the files. Most were written in code or used terms he didn't understand, but he found a folder labeled Observer Logs that contained video recordings. He clicked on the oldest one, dated 1947. A man in a military uniform appeared on screen, looking nervous, as he spoke. First contact was made today with what they call a temporal emissary. The visitor materialized on the platform at exactly 0600 hours, matching the signal pattern we've been tracking since April. The visitor appears human but claims to be from approximately 300 years in our future. They have offered technology and knowledge in exchange for our assistance with what they call the Continuity Project. Nathan played through more logs, each documenting interactions with these visitors over decades. According to the logs, the facility had been built around the original point of contact, expanding over time as more technology was shared. The mining operation had been a cover. Listen to this, Nathan called to Carol, who joined him at the computer. He played a log from 2013, just a year before his father's disappearance. A woman in a lab coat was speaking. The emissaries have requested a different kind of observer. Previous military and scientific personnel have provided valuable data, but they now seek someone with investigative skills, someone who can help them understand social and cultural patterns. They've identified several candidates, with Alan Hughes as the primary choice. They were watching him, Carol said, long before Patel hired him. Not just him. Nathan found another file, this one containing surveillance photos. His stomach dropped as he scrolled through them. There were photos of his father over many years, but also photos of Nathan himself as a child, playing in his backyard, at school, at basketball games. They were watching me too. Nathan felt a chill. These people, whoever they were, had been monitoring his entire life. Why? What did they want with him? He clicked on a more recent file, dated just a month ago. It was a message addressed directly to him. Nathan Hughes, if you are reading this, you have found the gateway as intended. Your father's genetic and cognitive patterns have proven invaluable to our work. We believe you may share these traits. When the temporal window opens, we invite you to join the Continuity Project. The future of humanity depends on it. Nathan stared at the screen. They expected me to come here. They wanted me to find this place. Carol had moved back to the central platform and was examining a panel that had opened in the floor nearby. Nathan, come look at this. Inside the panel was a collection of objects, a small device that looked like a smartphone but with a transparent, Screen. A metallic bracelet and a sealed container with a medical symbol on it. These weren't here before, Carol said. The panel opened while you were looking at those files. Nathan picked up the phone-like device. It activated at his touch, the screen filling with text. Instructions for temporal transition, Nathan read aloud. Observer must wear the chronometric stabilizer at all times. He looked at the bracelet. I think that's this. Nathan, wait, Carol said, grabbing his arm. We don't know what this is or what it does. This could be dangerous. My father went through with this. He trusted them. Nathan continued reading. Observer will experience disorientation upon arrival. Medical supplement will reduce symptoms. He picked up the container. Stop and think, Carol urged. What if this is a trap? What if these future humans aren't what they claim to be? We only have their word for what happened to your father. Nathan hesitated. She was right. He had no proof that his father was, save or that these visitors were telling the truth. But he had come this far, and the answers he sought were just beyond his reach. I need to know what happened to him, Nathan said. I need to see for myself. Before Carol could respond, a low hum filled the room. The rings around the platform began to move, rotating slowly at first, then faster. The blue light in the etchings grew brighter. It's activating, Carol said, backing away. Something's happening. A voice came from speakers around the room, speaking in a language Nathan didn't recognize. Then it switched to English. Temporal window opening. Alignment in 30 seconds. Prepare for transition. The air above the platform began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The shimmer grew more pronounced, forming a column of distorted space. Nathan, don't, Carol pleaded. We don't know what this is. But Nathan was already moving toward the platform, drawn by the possibility of finding his father. He slipped the bracelet onto his wrist. It tightened automatically, conforming to his skin. I have to go, he said. If I don't come back, tell my mother I love her. Wait. Carol moved to one of the computer stations. Let me at least try to understand how this works. Maybe there's a way to make sure you can return. She typed rapidly, pulling up diagrams and data streams. The temporal window only opens at specific intervals. According to this, the next alignment will be in 7 days. The voice from the speakers counted down. 10 seconds to alignment. 9, 8. Nathan opened the medical container and found a small capsule inside. Following the instructions, he swallowed it without water. 7, 6, 5. I'll come back for you, Nathan promised Carol. In 7 days. Right here. 4, 3. He stepped onto the platform. The air around him felt electric, making his hair stand on end. The room seemed to stretch and distort, as if he was looking through warped glass. 2, 1. The blue light from the rings flared blindingly bright. Nathan felt a sensation like falling and rising at the same time. His body seemed to stretch, atoms pulling apart and reconnecting. For a moment, he saw multiple versions of the room layered over each other, like transparent sheets of reality stacked together. Then everything went white, and Nathan Hughes vanished from the world he knew, just as his father had 10 years before. Carol stared at the empty platform as the rings slowed and the light dimmed. The temporal window had closed. She was alone in the facility with its strange technology and secrets. She turned back to the computer, determined to understand what had happened and how to bring Nathan back. On the screen, a new message appeared. Observer transition successful. Welcome to the Continuity Project, Nathan Hughes. Nathan opened his eyes to blinding white light. His body felt strange, as if his skin didn't quite fit. The medical capsule he had taken was doing its job, keeping the worst of the disorientation at bay, but he still felt like he was floating as his vision cleared. He found himself lying on a platform similar to the one he had left behind. But everything else was different. The room was larger. The walls curved in a way that seemed to defy normal architecture. Light came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Welcome, Nathan Hughes, a voice said. Your transition was successful. A figure approached. At first glance, it looked human, a woman in her 30s with dark hair and eyes. But as she drew closer, Nathan noticed subtle differences. Her movements were too fluid, her features too perfect. She wore a simple gray outfit that seemed to shift and change as she moved. "My name is Elise," she said. "I am your guide." Nathan sat up slowly, his head spinning. "Where am I? When am I?" "You are approximately 300 years into your future," Elise replied. "This is Nexus Point 7, one of our temporal research facilities." Nathan looked around the room. Other people, or beings that looked like people, moved about, working at stations with technology that made the equipment in the hidden facility look primitive. "My father," Nathan said. "Alan Hughes. Is he here? Is he alive?" Elise smiled. "He is here, and he is well. He has been waiting for you. The temporal currents only allow for travel at specific intervals, and this is the first alignment that matched your parameters since he arrived." "What does that mean, my parameters?" "Temporal travel is not simple," Elise explained. "Not everyone can make the journey safely. Your father's genetic and cognitive patterns allowed for successful transition. You share many of those traits." Nathan stood up carefully, testing his balance. "I want to see him." "Of course. He is eager to see you as well. But first, you need to understand why you are here, why we brought your father here, and why humanity's future depends on what happens next." Elise led Nathan through a series of rooms, each filled with technology he couldn't begin to understand. People worked quietly, some looking entirely human, others with subtle differences: eyes too large, skin with a faint metallic sheen, movements too precise. "Are you human?" Nathan asked Elise. "Yes, though perhaps not as you define it," she answered. "Humanity has evolved over the centuries. Some of us have chosen to enhance ourselves with technology. Others remain closer to your form. We are all human, just at different points on the evolutionary path." They entered a large circular room with a domed ceiling that showed the sky above. A sky Nathan didn't recognize. The stars were in wrong positions, and there were 2 moons, visible. "This is not Earth," Nathan said. "It is not," Elise confirmed. "Earth became uninhabitable approximately 150 years ago, from your perspective. We colonized this world, which we call New Terra, but now it too is failing." At the center of the room was a table displaying a holographic image of a planet, rotating slowly. Nathan recognized it as Earth, but continents were wrong. Coastlines changed, ice caps gone, large areas marked in red. "Climate change," Nathan said. "That was only the beginning," Elise replied. "What followed was worse. Wars over dwindling resources, biological weapons, nuclear exchanges. By the time humanity realized the full extent of the damage, it was too late to reverse course. The evacuation to New Terra saved only a fraction of Earth's population." Nathan stared at the hologram. "And now New Terra is dying too?" "Yes. The mistakes we made on Earth we repeated here despite our best intentions. Our scientists believe we have less than 50 years before this world becomes uninhabitable as well. What does this have to do with me, or my father? We developed temporal communication technology out of desperation," Elise explained. "If we could not save our world, perhaps we could change the path that led us here. Send warnings back in time, guide humanity toward better choices." She waved her hand, and the hologram changed to show a network of lines connecting various points. "We established temporal beacons at key moments in history, but simple messages were not enough. We needed observers from the past who could understand both their time and ours, people who could help us identify the critical turning points." A door opened at the far end of the room. A man walked in, older than Nathan remembered but immediately recognizable. "Dad," Nathan whispered. Alan Hughes looked like he had aged about 15 years, though only 10 had passed in Nathan's timeline. His hair was now mostly gray and new lines marked his face, but his eyes were the same, and they filled with tears. As he saw his son, Nathan ran to his father and embraced him. For a long moment, they just held each other. "I knew you'd find the letter," Alan said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "I knew you'd understand." "I had help," Nathan replied, thinking of Carol waiting back in their time. "Why didn't you come back?" "Mom, she never stopped wondering what happened to you." Alan's face showed pain at the mention of his wife. "The temporal windows don't open often. By the time I could have returned, years had passed. And what I learned here," he gestured at the hologram of Earth. "This is bigger than us, Nathan. The future of humanity is at stake." "Your father has been invaluable to our work," Elise said. "His understanding of social patterns in your era has helped us identify several critical points where small changes could create significant diversions from our timeline." Alan led Nathan to the hologram table. "We've mapped out the cascade of events that led to Earth's destruction. It didn't happen all at once. Each disaster made the next one more likely, creating a chain reaction that eventually became unstoppable." The hologram showed a timeline stretching from Nathan's present day forward, with branching paths and critical junctions. "The first major tipping point is only 5 years from your time," Alan explained. "A series of policy decisions about new technology that seems beneficial but ultimately accelerates resource depletion and climate destabilization." Nathan studied the timeline. "So you want to stop these decisions? Change the past to save the future?" "Not exactly," Elise said. "Direct intervention creates paradoxes that could be worse than the problems we're trying to solve. Instead, we need to guide humanity toward making different choices on their own." "That's where you come in," Alan said, putting a hand on Nathan's shoulder. "I've been working with their historians and scientists to develop subtle interventions. Now we need someone to implement them. Someone who understands the time period intimately, who can work within it without drawing attention." "You want me to go back and change history?" Nathan asked. "To nudge it," Alan corrected. "Small actions at the right moment that will compound over time. And you wouldn't be alone. Carol Baker can help you. She was part of this plan from the beginning." "Carol knew about this?" "Not consciously," Elise explained. "But she was selected as a backup observer years ago. Her presence at the observatory, her meeting with your father, these were not accidents." Nathan tried to process everything he was hearing. "So you've been manipulating all of us? Me, my father, Carol, we're just pawns in your plan?" "Not pawns," Alan said firmly. "Partners. Yes, they identified us based on certain traits. Yes, they created situations that would lead us here. But the choice to help is still ours." He pointed to the hologram of the dying Earth. "I've seen what happens if we do nothing, Nathan. It's not just about saving some future version of humanity. It's about saving everyone. Your friends, your children, their children. You have to decide," Elise said. "The temporal window that will allow you to return opens soon. If you choose to help us, we can prepare you with the knowledge and tools you'll need. If not, you can return to your time with no obligation." Nathan looked at his father. "And you? Will you come back with me?" Alan shook his head. "My work is here now. I've aged differently. Going back would raise too many questions. But you can tell your mother that I'm alive, that I'm doing important work, that I never stopped loving her." Nathan walked around the hologram table, watching as the possible futures branched and merged. In some branches, Earth remained habitable. In others, it died, as in Elise's timeline. "If I do this," he said finally, "what exactly would I need to do?" "Influence key people," Elise said. "Share specific information at critical moments. Guide development of certain technologies while discouraging others. Nothing that would seem unnatural or draw attention to yourself." "A ripple effect," Alan added. "Small changes now that grow over time." Nathan thought of Carol waiting for him back at the facility. He thought of his mother, who deserved to know what had happened to her husband. He thought of the dying planet shown in the hologram and the billions of lives that had been lost. "I'll do it," he said. "I'll help you try to change things." Alan smiled proudly. "I knew you would." Elise nodded. "Then we should begin your preparation immediately. The window opens in 12 hours. As they left the room, Nathan looked back at the hologram one last time. The future wasn't fixed. It could be changed. And somehow he had become the one who might change it. The son of a missing investigator following in his father's footsteps in ways he never could have imagined.